Good morning. My name is Teresa Poole, and I use she, her pronouns, and I have the honor of being your worship associate this morning. Please take a moment to put your mind, your spirit, and your cell phones in worship mode. We want to welcome everyone here and online to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Roanoke this Easter morning. We are so glad you're here with us today and hope you choose to stay for fellowship after the service. Please take a second to turn around and connect with those who are joining us at home and wave to them. And for those of you online who wish to share your joys and concerns during the Lifelines portion of our service, please put those in the chat within the next 15 minutes. And we want to do the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that our church resides on the traditional lands of the Tutelo and Monacan nations and was later farmed and developed through slave labor. We recognize and respect the ongoing connection to this land by generations of Black, Indigenous, and other people of color. May our gratitude and fellowship here echo and honor that rich history. And if y'all will please join me in reciting the words of welcome. Whoever you are, whomever you love, how do you express your identity? Whatever your situation in life, whatever your experience of the holy, as you come seeking love, your presence here is a gift. Where you are filled with sadness or overflowing with joy, needing to be alone with yourself, or eager to engage with others, all who welcome all are welcome here. And our covenant. We commit to supporting each other with respect and direct communication as we work in community to explore spiritual grace and to be a force for good in the world.
Good morning. Happy Easter. I am the Reverend Jen Raffensperger. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I'm honored to serve as the minister of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Roanoke and to be with you on this beautiful spring morning. It is Easter Sunday, and we are right to rejoice at the awakening of the earth. It is a balm to the soul to lift our voices in song, and I'm grateful for Carrie and our choir for the gifts that they are sharing with us this morning. And while our hearts find much to rejoice in, we also know that our hearts are challenged daily by so many things that bring us sorrow. It is hard to keep up with all the news, to consider all the things we feel we should, to take in the enormity of both the joy and the suffering in the world. On Easter Sunday, Christians around the world gather to celebrate the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Unitarian Universalism comes from two branches of Christianity that have a slightly different relationship with Jesus than many mainline Christian churches today. But we regard Jesus as a well-loved Jewish teacher living in first-century Palestine who dared to ask for peace, to suggest another way than that presented by the Roman Empire. In the spirit of Jesus and in the spirit of peace and in the spirit of wanting another way to be possible in the world, I have selected the poem Before I Was Gazan by Naomi Shihab Nye, a Palestinian-American poet. I want us to hold all of those suffering in regions of war in our hearts this morning while you listen to these words. Before I was Gazan, I was a boy, and my homework was missing. Paper with numbers on it stacked and lined. I was looking for my piece of paper, proud of this plus that, then multiplied, not remembering if I left it on the table after showing it to my uncle or the shelf after combing my hair, but it was still somewhere, and I was going to find it and turn it in, make my teacher happy, make her say my name to the whole class before everything got subtracted in a minute. Even my uncle, even my teacher, even the best math student and his baby sister who couldn't yet talk. And now I would do anything for a problem I could solve. I'll now invite Teresa to light our chalice. This morning, we join with Unitarian Universalist churches and congregations around the nation and the world in lighting our chalice together, the symbol of the living tradition of our faith to shine as a beacon for all.
May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, O Spirit of life.
Hello, my name is Jessie McEwen. I'm the Director of Lifespan Faith Development, and if you don't know what that is, that's religious education for all ages. And today I'd like to invite up anybody who'd like to hear a story. It's a little bit of a serious story, but come on up. There's plenty of room here if you want to join. There's also a couple chairs up there if you're a tall person that wants to sit in a chair. There's some folks coming. Come on down. So I have a story to tell you about women who had lost all hope. Now we hear stories from all over the place, including the story of Easter and the story of yesterday in the Bible, where Jesus had been killed, and the women who knew Jesus, including his mom, went to his grave, and they had lost some hope. Because that's a sad thing, and that's something that we grieve. This is the story of some Palestinian women who had lost all hope. Now, in the early 1800s, Palestine had been invaded by the Ottoman Empire. And what they did was they took the men and they put them into jail. Because if you separate people Sometimes you can make those people stop even being a nation. You can break them down and make them so sad that they stop being who they are. But these women went to the jail where these men were locked up. And they knew that they were probably never going to get out of jail because there was no reason to lock them up in the first place. So you can keep them if you didn't have any reason to let them go or any reason to lock them up. So they went and they sang songs that they made up. One of my favorite ones says, you who are sitting in jail, you are the person that went up the mountain. And going up the mountain means going to learn, going to be a better Muslim, going to be a better husband, going to learn to be a better person. Who thinks they might like to go up the mountain sometime? Heck yeah. I try to go up the mountain every day. So they say, you went up the mountain. Number one, thank you. And number two, you're important to me, and I will never forget you because you went up the mountain. And you know what? They didn't have to know the people in there. They sang and they sang and they sang, and they were told to stop singing. So you know what they did? They kept singing, and they changed the way they sang. Now, we're going to listen to one of these songs. We're going to listen to that song about the person that went up the mountain. In this song, they added a bunch of syllables. Now, the people that threw these men in jail didn't speak their language. They knew a little bit of Arabic, but they didn't speak a lot of Arabic. So you know what they did? They put a bunch of other syllables in the words. Has anybody ever heard Pig Latin or Ubby-Dubby from Zoom? These languages that are English, but they've changed just a little bit, is how they made these rulers, these captors, think that they were singing nonsense, so they let them keep singing. And you know what? In the late 1800s, they did it again. In the 1940s, they did it again. Last week, they did it again. The women of Palestine sing these songs to find hope where it seems super hopeless. So we're going to listen to one of those songs. My friend, Miss Lynn back there, is going to play one for us. If you want to close your eyes, if you want to just stare off into space, if you want to stare at me, you can. But let's listen to what the song sounds like.
طالعين عين للجبل يا مول الموقدين النار بين اليمن يمان عين للهنا يا روح يا طالعين عين للجبل يا مول الموقدين النار بين اليمن يمان عين للهنا يا روح ما بدي منك لكم خلعة ولا لا 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 بدي ملبوس بين اليمن يمان عين للهنا يا روح ما بدي منك لكم خلعة ولا لا 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 بدي زنار بين اليمن يمان عين للهنا يا روح يا طالعين عين للجبل يا مول الموقدين النار بين اليمن يمان عين للهنا يا روح إلا غزال اللي ذي جوين الليكم محبوس بين اليمن يمان عين للهنا يا روح إلا غزال اللي ذي جوين الليكم ميدوم بين اليمن يمان عين للهنا يا روح يا طالعين عين للجبل يا مول الموقدين النار بين اليمن يمان عين للهنا يا روح يا طالعين عين للجبل يا مول الموقدين النار بين اليمن يمان عين للهنا يا روح.
I'm going to invite you guys to go back to your chairs and sit with your families. And remember that when your heart feels like it's locked up in a dungeon, my heart will sing that song for you.
Thank you, Jesse. That was beautiful. You told me that story, but I hadn't heard the song yet. That was lovely. So this morning, we have two readings. The first is from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 16, verses 1 to 8. When the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene and Mary the mother of James and Salome brought spices so that they might go and anoint him. And very early on the first day of the week, when the sun had risen, they went to the tomb. They had been saying to one another, "Who will roll away the stone for us from the entrance to the tomb?" When they looked up, they saw that the stone, which was very large, had already been rolled back. As they entered the tomb, they saw a young man dressed in a white robe sitting on the right side, and they were alarmed. But he said to them, "Do not be alarmed. You are looking for Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified. He has been raised. He is not here. Look, there is the place they laid him. But go, tell his disciples and Peter that he is going ahead of you to Galilee. There you will see him just as he told you." So they went out and fled from the tomb, for terror and amazement had seized them, and they said nothing to anyone, for they were afraid.
For the second reading, and it is my honor to share this, this morning it's an excerpt from Dr. Miguel de la Torre, his essay titled "Toward a Theology of Hopelessness." Hope can be optimistically believed if we accept that the arch of history does bend toward justice. But if the past and present are any guides, the existing of such an arc is a faith statement assumed without proof. But hope as a statement of unfounded belief serves as an important middle-class purpose. All too often, hope becomes an excuse not to deal with the reality of injustice. For those struggling to survive, the truth remains that destitution and death await the disenfranchised. The reality of reading our daily newspapers is that for far too many who are on the margins of society, there is no hope. In a very real sense, waiting leads to nothingness. But we who are familiar with it or who grew up in marginalization are used to it. The oppressed of the world occupy the space of Holy Saturday, the day after Friday's crucifixion, and the not yet Easter Sunday of resurrection. This is a space where some faint anticipation of Sunday's good news is easily drowned out by the reality and consequences of Friday's violence and brutality. It is the space where hopelessness becomes the companion of used and abused people. The virtue and/or audacity of hope becomes a class privilege experienced by those protected from the reality of Friday or the opium that is used to numb that same reality until Sunday comes around. Regardless of the optimism professed, the disenfranchised, their children and their children's children will more than likely continue to live in ever-expanding poverty. Sunday seems so far away. Waiting Esperando becomes tiresome. The situation remains hopeless. The hopelessness I advocate rejects quick and easy fixes that may temporarily soothe the conscience of the privileged, but is no substitute for bringing about a more just social structure that is not based on disenfranchisement of the world's abused. But this hopelessness that I advocate is not disabling. Rather, it is a methodology that propels towards praxis. All too often, the advocacy of hope gets in the way of listening and learning from the oppressed. To sit in the reality of Saturday is to discover that the semblance of hope becomes an obstacle when it serves as a mechanism that maintains rather than challenges the prevailing social structures. But this is never an excuse to do nothing. It may be Saturday, but that's no justification to passively wait for Sunday. If we are to hope against all hope, then it will be an understanding that messiahs don't show up once and for all. Instead, the presence of the divine invades the here and now so that we are not alone in the midst of suffering due to oppression. Messianic solidarity with the oppressed in the midst of hopelessness might indeed be the only hoped for.
Thank you. So they went out and fled from the tomb, for terror and amazement had seized them, and they said nothing to anyone, for they were afraid. This, the 8th verse in the 16th chapter of the Gospel of Mark in the Christian Scriptures, is the end of the chapter, indeed, the end of the Gospel itself in many of the earliest manuscripts. In my Oxford Study Bible, the footnote for chapter 16, verse 8 says this, quote, "Textual evidence seems to favor the view that the gospel ended with the word afraid. However, the phrase, 'for they were afraid,' is more abrupt in Greek than in English, and many scholars believe that there must have been additional material. Verses 9 to 20 are found in numerous witnesses." Now, verses 9 to 20, which are published in brackets, go on to paint a very precise picture of the rest of Jesus' post-resurrection time on earth. He appears first to Mary Magdalene, who goes to tell others who do not believe her. Then he appears to 2 other followers who go tell the story, and no one believes them. Then he appeared to all 11 of his remaining apostles and, quote, "reproached them for their incredulity and dullness," in verse 14, exhorting them again to go out and tell the story. But let's go back to that phrase, thought far too abrupt in Greek to end the story, "for they were afraid." Of course they were afraid. If you went to the place where your friend had been buried mere days before, and not only was he not where you expected him to be, but there was a stranger there telling you that he had risen from the dead, honestly, it's the kind of story you absolutely could make a horror movie out of. I think it's easy for those of us who grew up within the Christian tradition to forget how horrifying the events of Good Friday were, especially for the friends and followers of Jesus. Whatever you might think of the story, we do know that people were crucified by the Roman Empire, and we do know that it was a terrible and a painful way to die. It's hard to lose a friend no matter the circumstances, and the circumstances described for Jesus of Nazareth are horrific indeed. Now, at this point on a beautiful Easter morning, you may very well be tempted to say, "Rev Jen, enough. We know that you love horror fiction, but this is hitting too close to home. The world right now feels scary, everything feels out of control, and we are looking for comfort." Believe me, dear ones, so am I. But to look for comfort without first being very clear about what we're uncomfortable about and why, that can lead us to ignore valuable opportunities for growth. All too often, the advocacy of hope gets in the way of listening and learning from the oppressed. To sit in the reality of Saturday is to discover that the semblance of hope becomes an obstacle when it serves as a mechanism that maintains rather than challenges the prevailing social structures. But this is never an excuse to do nothing. It may be Saturday, but that's no justification to passively wait for Sunday. Cuban theologian and professor of religion and ethics who now teaches, I believe, at ILIF in Denver, Dr. Miguel de la Torre, wrote this essay from which we took our second reading today. He wrote that in 2015. And I read it at that time because my home congregation was fortunate enough to host Dr. de la Torre as a speaker. I was not yet in seminary, but I knew that I was on that path. I have been waiting to preach on this text for 10 years. I haven't done it before, honestly, because it scares me a little. I have heard Unitarian Universalists described lovingly but critically as people who, quote, want Easter Sunday without Good Friday. Now, this statement would seem to imply that we want the resurrection, the new life, the promises of a better world to come without examining deeply the suffering that we are currently residing in. And I don't happen to fully agree. I don't think that's entirely true. I don't like blanket statements generally. But I do think that especially in our current times, Unitarian Universalists are engaging in the deep spiritual work of struggling with injustice, with discomfort, and with the hard reality that hope truly does feel utterly impossible sometimes. And yet, the oppressed of the world occupy the space of Holy Saturday, the day after Friday's crucifixion and the not yet Easter Sunday of resurrection. This is a space where some faint anticipation of Sunday's good news is easily drowned out by the reality and consequences of Friday's violence and brutality. The faint anticipation of hope being drowned out by the noisy reality of violence and brutality. Does that sound familiar? Relatable, perhaps, in our current moment? I am, as each of us are, I am a person of many identities. And the particular social location that I inhabit happens not to be one touched by many of society's many oppressions very directly. I am white. I am cisgender. I am middle class. I was born in this country. I'm that special kind of extremely late blooming, low-key Gen X queer that basically means that I am exhausted with all of the ideas about sex, love, and relationships that molded me when I was young, and I want liberation from the most harmful of those ideas, not just for myself, but for all. I'm also a woman, and a woman of a certain age, which means that I possess a certain power that younger women too often struggle to achieve in our society. So when Dr. de la Torre asks me to consider the Easter story, the very notion of hope in a better future, from the perspective of the oppressed and the marginalized, that's a stretch for me. It is hard for me. It is uncomfortable for me. And it is entirely necessary for me to do, to build my own capacity for empathy, for growth, for a deep and embodied understanding that we are all connected, that when a part of humanity is suffering and another part of humanity is not, when part of humanity is suffering at the hands of another part of humanity, we are perpetuating a disconnect with the deepest parts of ourselves. Right now, in today's world, I have a lot of conversations that start like this. How are you? Well, I mean, I'm basically okay, except for gestures broadly. I'm sure you have those too. I sometimes feel guilt for experiencing joy in my own life, and I'm sure you do too. And I want to ask you to stop that right this instant. Joy and sorrow come to us all, and sometimes they come at the same time. And to deny yourself or anyone joy is as much a denial of your humanity as it is to deny your own or anyone else's suffering. If we are to hope against all hope, then it will be in understanding that messiahs don't just show up once and for all. Instead, the presence of the divine invades the here and now so that we are not alone in the midst of suffering due to oppression. Messianic solidarity with the oppressed in the midst of hopelessness might indeed be the only hope hoped for. The presence of the divine invades the here and now so that we are not alone in the midst of suffering due to oppression. Solidarity in the midst of hopelessness might be indeed the only hope hoped for. When we have those kinds of conversations, I personally am okay, even though I know deeply that the world is not. It demonstrates to us, in part, that we hold a certain level of privilege. But we see every day that this sense of fear and the numbers of people that we can label the oppressed are both growing. As the tide of unchecked power used to harm increasing numbers of people perceived as other, and my God, there always has to be an other for people desperate to keep power, doesn't there? The Roman Empire crucified their others, like Jesus. We tremble with our own fear that those we love will have reason to be labeled other by those who have shrunk so far from their essential humanity that the only way that they can feel joy is by causing others pain. We need to be watchful through our fear. We need to be ready to hope for what hope is available to us, even in times of hopelessness. And while any 10 Unitarian Universalists might have 17 different opinions about Jesus, we can all agree that we must not let what happened to him, what empire did to him for preaching love and peace, happen to any of us. No exceptions. We must preserve hope in the face of hopelessness, just as we must preserve our humanity in the face of the inhumane. How do we begin? We listen. All too often, the advocacy of hope gets in the way of listening and learning from the oppressed. We learn to listen, to open our hearts to those around us, to the oppressed, to the marginalized, to those with different opinions than us, different ways of being in the world. Not necessarily to agree, but to understand and to witness the humanity of people of all kinds. To remind ourselves who we are. To remind ourselves that even when hope feels remote, there is work for us to do. On this Easter Sunday, may we remind ourselves that our fear and our discomfort are messengers and helpers. They point us to the things we need to learn about ourselves, about others, and about the world around us. May we also remember that the women who arrived on Easter morning at the empty tomb of Jesus felt something other than fear. In addition to fear, they felt amazement. Even when hope feels remote, even when your terror feels bigger than your amazement, know in your bodies and spirits as well in your minds, know that amazement, joy, and love are as much your birthright as fear and sorrow. They are the birthright of all humanity. We receive them all, and it is our choice what to do with them. Choose amazement. Choose to love in the face of fear. Choose love. Choose it again and again and again. That is the resurrection. That is the new life. That is the new world that may yet spring forth within our loving hearts and by the work of our loving hands. So may it be. Thank you. We've come to that time in our service each week where we invite you into generosity. None of this is possible without your time, talent, treasure, and the loving hearts that know that even when it is hard, we hope for a better world. The ushers will now gratefully receive the offering. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I am Linda Wood, and it is my honor to represent the Caring Committee this morning. As we do every Sunday morning, we share some joys and concerns in our congregation that everybody would like to be known publicly. If you have something that you would like to share, you can let the church office know, or you can write it in the book on the altar before church on Sunday morning, or you can sometime during the week, excuse me, let a member of the caring committee know. So into this holy space, I have to bring some really sad news this morning. Our former member, Mary Beth Chaconis, has been diagnosed with an inoperable brain tumor. Mary Beth was a member for over 30 years. She was in the choir, taught RE classes, and was bartender extraordinaire for our annual service auctions. She and her husband, Todd Hannibus, who was in charge of the AV committee, moved to Veneta, Oregon, right after the COVID-19 lockdowns, and they have been enjoying living in the Pacific Northwest. Todd will be caring for her in their home, just as he cared for his first wife, Mary, when she was given a similar diagnosis. Mary Beth does not want phone calls at this time, but she would like letters and cards for herself, as well as for Todd. And please see Betsy if you would like her address after the service. So now it's your turn, your chance, to come forward and light a candle for something that's in your heart this morning. Please use both sides of the aisle. May our prayers be heard and our hearts be restored.
It's okay. And the choir does have a few minutes. It's okay, Linda, I didn't tell you this. If you want to go, if choir members do want to light candles, I want to invite you to do that at this time. Sorry, we talked about that, Carrie, and I didn't tell you, Linda, so that's on me. Thank you. Thanks to you all, and Linda, we also hope that the choirs. That is on me. So I wanted everybody to know that some weeks the choir it's just a hymn or something where there's not parts, and this was a beautiful piece of Fare's Requiem that they just did, and we wanted to make sure that the choir members also got to light candles, and I didn't communicate that to Linda. So thank you for your patience. This is not a production every week, right? This is real moments. So thank you. I will light a candle again for all. There's so many things to decide what to light this candle for every week. So I am going to light it for every single dogwood that is in bloom. And I will light this, as I do every week, for everyone who is joining us on YouTube. Your presence here is known and appreciated, even though you are here in spirit, if not in body. So I'll invite you at this time into a space of prayer and reflection. If you would settle comfortably in your seats, close your eyes if that's comfortable for you, or soften your gaze. Spirit of life and God of many names, we know there are 1,000 ways to speak of the pain residing within each human heart, and also 1,000 ways to praise the joy that comes to us, sometimes at the most inconvenient times, when we see a dogwood in bloom and are amazed even as we understand or feel pain or the suffering of another. In some teachings, it is written that the suffering of others is even harder to witness than the suffering of the self, because you know and understand yourself in that light better than you know what another is going through. I want us to think about the separation and the distance and the challenges that we feel even just day to day, not to mention all of the things that our devices are throwing at us. I invite you to think that for every sorrow, for every fear, for every terror, there is also somewhere someone experiencing joy, renewal, the completion of a longed-for task, a chance to help someone, the chance to reconnect with a friend or a family member who has been long disassociated. We know that life is complicated, and we still celebrate. We celebrate the rising green. We celebrate the coming of spring. We celebrate the joy that we feel in community and with one another. May we find our strength within. So may it be.
And now, as we draw close to the end of our time together in worship this week, we turn our attention from within our own community and their joys and concerns, and we prepare to engage with the world in the week ahead. We begin with a few announcements. On Thursday at 6 p.m. in the Olin Room, you're invited to join us for popcorn theology. And yes, it does include some popcorn. We'll be watching the movie My Octopus Teacher and then discussing it, especially noting how the film relates to our own UU values. Then on Sunday, April 27th, the UUCR Pride Committee will be hosting a booth at the Roanoke Pride Festival in Elmwood Park, and that will be from noon to 6 p.m. We encourage you to stop by and to join us for a while as we demonstrate UUCR's commitments to being a welcoming congregation for all. At this time, I'd like to invite Claire English to share more about our capital campaign.
Good morning. But first I want to tell you, if you haven't seen my octopus teacher, it's phenomenal. Don't miss it. It's really great. Well, I was thinking about our capital campaign this morning when Rob grabbed me, and he gave me some good news. We've launched. It's happening. And our Building the Vision campaign is off to a terrific start. First, I'd like to thank the board and the steering committee for its approval. It's a critical and well-thought-out decision. After the board and the steering committee met on Thursday, they approved moving forward with the campaign. We immediately began planning and organizing and the action that follows the launch. You know, we're starting out on our journey with hearts full of confidence because, as Rumi says, as you start to walk on the way appears. As we start on that way, we have opportunities to create the vision of an environment that nurtures and fortifies that part of us we think of as spirit and soul. In this way, our capital campaign is indeed a spiritual endeavor, and we choose to approach it that way. And I've been asked to share that, in fact, we already have made 2 visits and have received 2 pledges. Now, you will likely receive a call in the coming weeks to ask for a visit, most often from one of your UU peers, and I urge each of you to be receptive to that request. Completing as many of these visits as possible in the coming weeks is vitally important to the success of our Building the Vision campaign. And I can't stress enough how helpful your joining that effort will be, and we all thank you for that. You know, we've chosen to be here at UU because we've learned you don't need to live out the stories of others. Here we're encouraged over time to unfold our own myth, one that meets our ever-changing needs. In building our campaign vision, we aim to promote an environment that fosters that very unfolding, the emerging you, the emerging I, the emerging we. We accept that we are equipped to meet and overcome any impediments as we prepare the sacred footing for the embodiment of these dreams. Again, I thank you.
Thank you, Claire, for sharing that and sharing that good news with our congregation. I'll now invite Teresa to extinguish our chalice, as we do each week, and join Unitarian Universalist churches and congregations across the nation and the world, knowing that we cannot actually leave the oil lamp burning all week for safety purposes, but that we encourage you to take the flame of our faith with you in your heart out into the world and out from this place, knowing that we remain your community.
I sing because I'm happy.
I sing because I'm free. His eyes on the sparrow, and I know He watches me.
I sing because I'm happy.
I sing because I'm free. His eyes on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. I sing.
Oh, yes, I sing.
Because I'm happy, I sing.
Oh, yes, I sing.
Because I'm free. For His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. I sing.
Oh, yes, I sing.
Because I'm happy, I sing.
Oh, yes, I sing.
Because I'm free. For His eye is on the sparrow, and I
you, choir, for bringing it up at the end, because thank y'all for holding with I have to speak what's in my heart, right? And that wasn't exactly a Easter bunny's happy thing Sunday sermon, but that's what I needed to hear. So, for our benediction this week, the same as every week, hold that flame of our faith, hold the hope that you see in the faces of others within your heart for when things feel hopeless in the week to come. See you back here. I want to say, go now in peace.